The emergency lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. In the suffocating darkness of cell block D, something moved. Not the settling of old stone or the whisper of wind through broken windows. Something else. Something that shouldn't exist. Martin? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. A whisper that turned my blood to ice. It knew my name. In this abandoned prison where no living soul had walked for 60 years. It knew who I was. That was my first night at Westgate Correctional. I thought I was there to document a forgotten tragedy. I had no idea the tragedy was still happening. And I had no idea that my dead brother had left me a trail to follow. My name is Martin Cross. I'm a sound engineer and paranormal investigator. For 7 years, my partner Rick and I have made documentaries about America's haunted places, but Westgate was different. Westgate was personal. 3 years ago, my brother Nathan died in a prison cell at Rockview State Correctional. Officially ruled a suicide, but Nathan wasn't suicidal. He was 3 months from release, planning his future, talking about the life he wanted to build. Then one morning they found him hanging. Nathan and we were inseparable, a bond deeper than just brothers. Our happiest memories were often spent with our grandmother, listening to her endless stories. My grandmother, bless her soul, was a woman of deep faith. She filled my childhood, and Nathan's too, with all sorts of ghost stories and warnings about spiritual darkness. My grandmother always told me that some evils run deeper than death itself. Evil learns to hide, Martin, she'd say, pressing a small vial of holy water into my palm. It adapts, it survives, but sacred things always burn it. I still carry her holy water on every investigation. Call it superstition, call it insurance. After what I encountered in that haunted monastery in Vermont, where an old priest showed me how blessed water could force a malevolent spirit to reveal itself, I never investigate without it. Westgate Correctional was decommissioned in 1961 after a series of unexplained deaths. I set up my recording equipment in cell block D as the sun died behind the Pennsylvania hills. The corridor stretched 200 yards, 40 cells on each side, arranged in tiers of rusted iron. The original architects believed sensory deprivation led to repentance. They were wrong. It led to something far worse. Martin, look closer. I froze. The voice was faint, barely audible above the ambient noise, but unmistakably real. My audio, the equipment registered the sound. Tiny peaks and valleys where there should have been flat lines. Rick appeared in the doorway of cell D17, camera slung over his shoulder. The red emergency lights gave his face a hellish glow. "Getting anything?" he asked. I lied. Just ambient noise, the usual creaks and groans, but it wasn't usual. As I moved through the cells, I began noticing something strange. Scratches on the walls, not random graffiti, but deliberate markings. Small etchings that seemed to catch the light just right, as if someone wanted them to be found. In cell D8, I found the first clear marking. 3 parallel lines with an arrow pointing toward the floor. In D15, a crude symbol that looked like a key. In D22, numbers scratched so faintly they were barely visible. 17-3-12. Then one voice cut through the others, clear as the day he died. "Follow them, Martin. I left you a map." Nathan's voice. My dead brother was guiding me through this nightmare, one cryptic marking at a time. Back at our motel, I dove into the digital archives we'd been granted access to. Personnel records, death certificates, and incident reports spanning decades. That's when I found the pattern, and the reason it had been missed for so long. Aaron Hollis, a guard who worked at Westgate from 1923 to 1953. During his 30-year tenure, inmate suicides clustered around his shifts with statistical impossibility. Complaints were filed against him. Allegations of abuse, coercion, and suspicious deaths. But here's what the investigators didn't understand. Hollis had powerful allies. State Senator Marcus Webb, who sat on the Prison Oversight Committee, was Hollis's brother-in-law. Warden Charles Brennan had gambling debts that Hollis helped cover up through inmate labor kickback schemes. Every complaint was dismissed not through incompetence, but through deliberate corruption. The system wasn't broken, it was bought. Files were buried, witnesses transferred, and investigators were reassigned to more pressing matters. Rick emerged from the bathroom, still damp, concern etched on his face. "Martin, you've been at this for hours. What's got you so obsessed?" I couldn't tell him about hearing Nathan's voice. "Not yet. The corruption runs deeper than we thought, Rick. This wasn't incompetence. This was a conspiracy. But I also couldn't stop thinking about those markings. Nathan had been at Rockview, not Westgate. How could he have left me clues here? Unless his spirit had somehow crossed between prisons following the same evil that had killed him." My phone buzzed with a missed call. Unknown number. No voicemail. But somehow I knew that call was connected to whatever was haunting Westgate. Whatever had killed Nathan, whatever was still hunting. We returned to Westgate at first light. I felt drawn back to those cryptic markings retracing Nathan's spiritual breadcrumbs. Cell D8, 3 lines and an arrow. Cell D15, the key symbol. Cell D22, the numbers 17-3-12. It took me an hour to understand. The numbers weren't a date, they were coordinates. Cell 17, Section 3, 12 inches from the wall. Nathan was guiding me to something specific. I reached Cell D17 where Hollis had supposedly hanged himself. Following Nathan's cryptic map, I knelt by the rusted bed frame and began searching exactly where the markings had led me. "Nathan," I whispered, "is this what you wanted me to find?" "I found it first, Martin. Just before he killed me, I hid it for you. For justice." I scraped at a patch of newer concrete with my knife. 3 inches down, exactly where Nathan's markings had directed me, I hit metal. A box about the size of a thick book, hidden not by Hollis, but by my brother. Inside, dozens of personal items, wedding rings, religious medallions, photographs, precious belongings that meant everything to men who had nothing, each tagged with a name and date, trophies that Hollis had collected across decades. But beneath the items lay the real treasure, Hollis's journal. Nathan's voice came again, stronger now. He kept this in his office at Rockview. "I broke in 3 nights before he killed me. I knew he'd come for me, so I got it to safety. I managed to get it here somehow. Maybe my spirit, maybe my determination. I needed you to have the truth." The journal's final entries revealed everything, not just Hollis's murder techniques, but his supernatural transformation. The old Cherokee medicine man in cell block A taught me before I killed him. Death is just another door. The spirit can learn to anchor itself to objects, to places, to the living. When this body fails, I'll simply move. "Martin, what are you doing?" Rick stood in the cell doorway, confusion on his face. I held up the journal, my hands shaking. "Rick, Nathan found this before he died. My brother left me evidence that proves Hollis was murdering inmates for decades. And according to this, he learned to possess the living." The air turned arctic. Rick's expression changed from confusion to terror as he looked past me, his eyes widening in recognition and horror. "Martin, that's the man from my nightmares, the one who's been calling my name." I turned. Aaron Hollis stood 3 feet away, his form flickering between ethereal and solid. A spirit that had learned to manifest physically by drawing energy from the terror and despair that saturated this place. "Clever boy," Hollis snarled, "and clever brother. Nathan thought he could hide evidence from me. I made sure he suffered for that arrogance." But Hollis moved with inhuman speed. Rick's scream cut through the air as powerful, solid hands wrapped around his throat. I watched in horror as my partner and friend of 7 years was murdered by the same entity that had killed Nathan. Rick's body hit the concrete floor, his neck broken, finger-shaped bruises already darkening on his throat. I ran, through corridors past empty cells, clutching Nathan's final gift. The evidence that would expose a century of murder. Behind me, Hollis followed, his form flickering between translucent spirit and solid manifestation as he drew power from my terror. That's when I heard them all, dozens of voices rising from cell block D, the dead inmates finally able to speak their truth. "Nathan saved the evidence. Your brother fought for justice. He knew you'd come. The journal has everything." I ducked into the prison archives, frantically searching through files by flashlight. transfer records, personnel documents, death certificates. And there it was, the truth that would save my life and expose a monster. Aaron Hollis had died in 1953. His death certificate was real. But 6 months later, a new correctional officer named Robert Wagner appeared at Millfield State Prison. Same methods, same patterns, same evil wearing a different face. "Your brother was a fighter," Hollis said, standing in the doorway, fully solid now. "He discovered my office records, my transfer documents, even some of my trophies. Smart boy. Too bad intelligence runs in your family. It makes you such troublesome prey. I made Nathan's death last 3 days. He kept calling your name, begging me to let him warn you, but he never broke completely. Never told me where he'd hidden my journal. Even as I snapped his neck, he was smiling, saying you'd find it. And here you are." His hands closed around my throat, fully solid now, fueled by my terror and the accumulated despair of a century of victims. But as my vision began to darken, I heard Nathan's voice clearer than ever. "The holy water, Martin. Grandmother was right. Sacred things burn evil, even evil that's learned to wear flesh. I fought him for you. Now you finish it." My fingers found the small vial in my equipment bag, the holy water from St. Michael's Cathedral, blessed by a priest who had faced spiritual darkness before. As Hollis squeezed harder, I smashed the vial directly against his face. The effect was immediate and devastating. Where the holy water touched, his stolen flesh burned and steamed. But more than that, the sacred water disrupted his ability to maintain physical form. I could see his spirit writhing, trying to escape the burning blessing. "Impossible!" he screamed, his voice layering and distorting as he began to lose cohesion. "I killed your brother. I silenced him." "You silenced his voice," I gasped, "but you never broke his spirit, and you never found what he hid." His form flickered wildly between solid and ethereal, the holy water acting like spiritual acid on his stolen manifestation. For a moment, I saw something else. Shadows of all the faces he had worn, all the lives he had stolen and inhabited. "This won't destroy me," he snarled as his form began to dissipate. "I'll find another host, another weak mind. And when I do, I'll remember this humiliation. I'll remember you both." His form scattered like smoke, but his voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "I am eternal, Martin Cross. But now I know your family's scent." I drove away from Westgate feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Triumph. Nathan's journal sat beside me, Rick's camera in the back seat. Evidence that would expose decades of murder and corruption. Justice for my brother. Justice for all of them. Martin Cross. Silence, then distant laughter that made my blood freeze. "Very clever, Martin, very resourceful, but did you really think holy water could destroy something like me?" The voice was coming from my own mouth, but I wasn't speaking. "No," I whispered, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. "No, that's not possible. I banished you. I saw you dissipate. You forced me to abandon that deteriorating vessel, yes, but spirits need hosts, Martin. And in that moment of desperation, you were the only warm body available." I slammed on the brakes and grabbed the rearview mirror, angling it toward my face. My own eyes stared back, but behind them something else flickered, something ancient and hungry. "I'm inside you now, Martin, sharing your thoughts, your memories, your dreams. I know about your childhood fears, your grandmother's prayers, even your first kiss with Sarah Mitchell behind the school gymnasium. I tried to grab Nathan's journal to call the authorities, but my own hands wouldn't obey. They moved with someone else's will, someone else's muscle memory. The beautiful irony," Hollis continued through my vocal cords, "is that now you'll be the one exposing the truth. You'll publish that journal, contact those families, and build that network of investigators. But you'll be doing it as my